Hello, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living right here in Fullerton on this gorgeous day. Please join me in reading our purpose statement. We are a loving spiritual community empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. And now I'm going to go through a few announcements. Today is Certificate Sunday. You might have noticed that they're pretty festive in the back there. There's flowers everywhere. And we are honoring our newest practitioner, Eva Costello. My name is Sally Stredler, and I'm one of our practitioners here. And, we would like stories from you guys about how you've survived through this pandemic. And Tomoko is collecting them. The deadline is the end of the month. Please write a brief little story about what you've learned or done or had happened to you in this pandemic. And I think that's, and don't forget our Unexpected Income Club. We are up to $3,803.28. That's a tithe, so 10% of what people have experienced as their unexpected income. And so now, please join me in prayer for our invocation. We gather here today to share and celebrate with one another and learn about the harvest. I breathe in the perfect air of God. Everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch is God expressing. And God is the infinity of the universe and the vibrational energy of every atom. Our divine birthright manifests as me and my life right now, and you in your life right now. I bless this service. I bless all those who have planned and worked to make this day so special for each of us. There are blessings for you ushers and greeters whose warm smiles behind the mask make everyone feel welcome. There are blessings for our practitioners who keep the high watch of prayer for this congregation and our visitors, and those of you at home. We bless the members of our Board of Trustees as they manage the business affairs of our church center. There are special blessings for our wonderful musicians. Just you wait, you guys. There are blessings for our dear Reverend Dr. Bill, who's bringing us a message about the harvest today. And so in deep gratitude, I just release these words into the law, knowing it's done, it's perfect, and so it is. I subscribe to Unity's magazine called Daily Word, and there was a poem that I'd like to read to you. The title of it is Now is Never Too Late. It was written by a woman named Darlene Parnell. And the reason I want to read this is because I went to a gathering of practitioners from around the world. 11 countries were represented, and there were 145 of us on Zoom. It was Friday evening and yesterday, most of the day. And we were challenged to expand our practice as practitioners and to look at what we could do to contribute to the world. So, it's never too late. It's never too late to be what you might have been. Just know that it is never too late to begin again. Every moment is now. It is not too late. Time is an illusion. Your mind decides your fate. Have you written your book? Did you sing your song? Or did you make an excuse? It might take too long. Have you fallen in love? Or climbed that peak? Or do you lie to yourself saying you're just too weak? What dreams of yours are drifting by? What regrets will you have before you die? What adventures lie within your heart? Since time is now, why don't you start? Moments do not wait, and time does surely fly. The only way to fail is if you do not try. Live the life you came to live. Now is the time to start. Be present with intention, living from your heart. Dream big. Dream often is my own solemn vow. I am my own fearless creator, living in the now. Now please join me in prayer. All we see is God. All we hear is God. The universe to infinity and beyond is God made manifest. All our intuition and creativity is God expressing. The love we share for each other, our kindness, our generosity of spirit, are demonstrations of God in action. So now I speak my word for love and understanding, for projects to do and joys to share. I know that divine energy and health and healing are here for us, each of us, right now. In deepest gratitude for our enlightened teaching and our teachers of this beautiful philosophy, and in great joy I release these words into that divine law, knowing its perfect action is done right here and right now. And so it is.
Into the night, out of the darkness, into the light, where there was nothing, something comes to be. Take a breath and see possibility. Out of the morning, soft as a summer breeze, out of the struggle into a life of ease. There in the quiet, turning of the tide out of the darkness into the light. Ooh. Out of the silence into the song. Millions of voices singing all along. Have we the courage to simply let it be? Listen carefully to hear the harmony over the rainbow, under the sun. Everything's blooming, a new day has begun. Here's the beginning, we've known it all along. Out of the silence into the song. Here's the beginning, we've known it all along. Out of the silence into the song. Out of the silence into the song. La, la, la,
Wow, that's Terry Wilder and Tommy Cosentino. How great does this get? So, good morning once again. This is a Sunday. It's a great day to have a great day. I'm having a great day. Who's with me? Come on. Yeah. All right, so, in keeping with the monthly theme about the spiritual fall harvest, except at least for this week I'm scratching through fall. We're just going to talk about the spiritual harvest because the spiritual divine harvest has no season. It's available to us all the time. Everywhere, anywhere, anytime. And the title of today's talk is The Beauty of the Harvest. Before time began, I'm not going to just say that we've been promised the beauty of this harvest since before we were born, but before anything came into being, before time itself and space came to be. At that moment when the Word of God moved over the waters, biblically speaking, and in that nanosecond where everything in the manifest universe that was ever to be came exploding onto the scene. It brought with us in every cell, every atom, every particle, the potential for this harvest. That's a promise that will always be kept. Nothing can stop us from having our own massive, bountiful, beautiful harvest. Well, we could stop us from having it, but nothing else could stop us from having it, because it's guaranteed to us. At the moment that all of this was born in the mind of God, it came with this promise that nobody can take away from us. And just like the pattern of the oak tree is in the acorn, and like the pattern of the tulip is in that seed, that bulb, we have the pattern for the complete, total potential of all there is. The master teacher, Jesus, so exemplified this. And he said what? He said, these things and more you will do. Now, I'm not going to suggest that we've been letting him down at all, in the ensuing 2,000 plus years, but I think we could do better if we just realize that potential is there and that it's ours for the harvesting. You ever seen a flock of geese flying overhead? Do you ever stop to think that probably just a matter of a couple of hours prior to you seeing them in the sky, they were sitting in a pond somewhere or a lake? And then all at once, as if the memo came across, they all just got up and flew away to go thousands of miles. And then we have the butterflies, right? The butterflies that all go south to Mexico or here to California. Not to mention the swallows going all the way to Argentina and coming back. The salmon who come from all over the center of the ocean to swim upstream to spawn and die. How do they know to do that? How do any of these critters know to do that? It's built in, it's hardwired in them. They have that. Guess what? We have that too. Difference is, we have this little thing called volition, choice. We could actually ignore that built-in pattern or blueprint of our divinity and our potential in our reaping every benefit ever possible to anybody, anywhere, anytime. We could do that. I guess my question is, why do we? Why do we? Because all we have to do is just like the geese and the swallows and the butterfly and all the salmon and all the rest of them do. We just have to listen to that inner voice. Now we know we all have inner voices. And I'm not talking about the voices up here that you can get in trouble for listening to, but that voice that seems to come from somewhere else and just actually doesn't, just seems to come from within you and explode out. And it's not in your head, it's in your body, it's in your heart, it's in your soul. So we have the inner critic. I'm going to say that's in our head. I've talked about my inner chicken. That's in my head. We all have an inner hero. I believe the inner hero is not in our head, it's in our heart. But what we're talking about here, that inner voice, that's intuition. We know this. When we talk to God, we call that praying. When God talks to us, we call it intuition. Intuition. We don't even know where it comes from, and sometimes it's a whisper. Psst, psst, hey Bill, why don't you think about this? And other times it's just this demanding roar, it's this loud voice says, do this, or don't do this. And if we just learn to listen to that, we won't be dissuaded from reaping that bountiful harvest at any time, at any place. And the reason I knock off the fall is because, somewhere in the world it's summer, somewhere in the world it's winter, at the same time. Go figure. So things that can be grown in a certain climate can be grown only in this climate in this certain part of the year, but it can be grown in different climates at different parts of the year depending on how the world is turning. So we don't have to wait, especially with transportation being the way it is today. We don't have to worry about being without strawberries for a season because somebody somewhere's grown them and we're going to get them here. There's nothing that we have to do without. And as long as we pay attention to that within us that is producing this harvest, we have access to it all the time. When I talk about this harvest, I'm not talking about actually physically, geographically doing something, right? Because it's not an accomplishment, it's a realization. The harvest is already here, always. All we have to do is do our spiritual collecting of it and drawing it all into. We have like these massive, endless, limitless grain elevators within, right? We can swoop it all. Oh, well, that's a nice picture. I was just thinking about the picture of the wheat harvest from last Sunday, how neat that was and how we got all of that to gather up to put in our own grain elevator to use as we need as we go through life. I'm not sure about certain past civilizations. I mean, we're sure of a lot of them, right? History has told us about lots of past civilizations. How they came to power, how they had that demise, how they went away. We don't have any information, and I have to think that somewhere, somehow, at some time in this existence, there were those civilizations that so perfected their spirituality, and they're living in harmony, and they're living in that beauty and that joy and that trust and that community that was their divine birthright, like we strive to do. I have to think that there were some who actually achieved that. That's why they're not here anymore. They got to be so great at their spirituality that they just transcended this earthly plane. And I don't know how we would ever hear about them, find out about them, except to join them eventually someday. But the history of the civilizations that we do know about goes kind of like this. For various reasons, mostly around safety and security and protection, peoples band together. And then as they grow larger, they begin to form these societies. They have their norms, they have their rules and regulations, and everything seems to be working toward that great end, that utopia that we hear about so much. And then all at once, it seems like they get to this point where, for want of a better word, arrogance, hubris takes over, and we begin to think, I'm so great, it's all about me. I'm that rugged individual, I can do anything by myself, alone. And you get entire societies thinking that about themselves, and what happens? That leads to suffering. You know why it leads to suffering? Because it leads to separation from God. Pretty soon we get to the point where we're thinking, I'm doing all this. Guess what? I'm not doing any of this. And I'm going to take the liberty of speaking for you too. None of us are doing any of this. We have to do what's ours to do to allow that divine spirit to work through us for the betterment of ourselves and everybody else, but we're not doing it. Back to the master teacher, Jesus, what did he say? The Father within who does the works. But as soon as we lose sight of that, then we go into suffering, then we go into decline. And I think history will bear me out. There have been lots of civilizations that grew very big, very powerful, very strong, and today, where do you hear about them? In a chapter of a history book in the 8th grade. That's where we hear about them. And rightly so. Because as soon as we take that departure from the godliness that brought us here and that lives within us and allows us to be all that we can be, when we depart from that, we're just severing those ties that make us who we are. And don't get me wrong, it's not that God is angry or judgmental. Newsflash, God is not angry. We do not have an angry God, in spite of what some older testaments will tell you. We don't have a judgmental God. We have a God that gives and gives and gives and gives and provides everything we ever need. A life-creating, life-sustaining God that is here only for us to use to our benefit for the growth of ourselves and others. And when we stop doing that, we start losing sight of that potential harvest. And in fact, we get to the point where we can't harvest at all. Because as long as we think that we're the ones doing it all, no. Again, we've got to do what's ours to do. We've got to do our part. We have to function in this world. This is not airy-fairy stuff. This is not, oh, I'm so above this world. I live in God. I don't have to worry about doing the dishes or making the bed or sweeping the floor. I'm sorry. Yes, we do. We have to take care of all of that stuff. The difference is we're not doing it for us. We have to learn to live spiritually, where everything we do the very best we can do at it. This includes vocations, this includes jobs, this includes your money-making enterprises. It's our duty to do the very best we can, but not for the ego self. If we do the best we can possibly do for God, what's going to happen to little us? It's going to get swept right along. We're going to grow with it. We are going to prosper from that. But when we start thinking that we're doing everything just for me, it's not going to turn out well. Yeah, got that out of the way. Let's get on to the good stuff. Well, let's take one more little journey. You might have heard of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I think most of us have. The Swiss-American psychiatrist who became something of an expert in like near-death experience. And she wrote this book. I don't remember the title of the book, silly me, but it's about dying. Because that's such a great topic for Sunday morning. Let's talk about dying. With that country song, let's think about living, let's think about life. Forget about the lying and the crying and looking and the dying. Anyway. And she had such an experience. She was with so many people who were at end life stage. She got some real insight into this. And she said, and I think we can all agree with this, that the most important thing, the thing that every creature ever has always strived for, been involved in, is self-preservation. Okay? We're all involved in self-preservation. So she says, you would think then that the biggest fear of people would be the fear of death. She says, no, I've been with so many people at end stage. I can tell you, it's not about the fear of death. When you get close to making that transition, just nobody's really that concerned about death because they understand that death is just like taking off your jacket. Just like leaving this body behind. Remember about separating the wheat from the chaff? We do away with the things that are not serving us anymore. We maintain the things that are serving us. Well, what's not serving us at that stage is the body. And what is serving us is the spirit. And again, dust goes back to dust, spirit goes back to spirit. But she says what most people are concerned about is that they didn't fulfill their purpose. They didn't fulfill their potential. Now, spoiler alert. When we get to that stage and we think to ourselves, I'm not sure I reached my potential. Can I have another run at this? The answer is no, not in this lifetime. No, we don't get another run at that point. But we get all the other runs we want up into that. And you know, God, life, nature is on our side. And I think kind of chuckling when she does it, but we do get that little halfway warning, right? You go to a ball game, they have a halftime. In life, we have a halftime. We call it a midlife crisis, but that comes about because something within us, something is telling us that interiorization of the divine is saying, you want to just check things out and see if you're heading in the right direction? Are you doing everything you want to do? Sometimes that gives cause to substantial, glorious, spiritual, and life-changing change in what we do, how we think, how we treat people. Other times, we let that little me take over, and that results in the new Porsche, the boat, all those things that we think should be important, or that we think will draw more attention to us as me, as the little me. And of course, I suppose it will from other little me's. But from spiritually minded people, from the spiritually mature people that we travel with, and from the divine itself, is that drawing the kind of attention that we want? I don't think so. Next time you walk in front of a mirror, here's something for you. Look in that mirror. Guess what's looking back? What's looking back at you is not the image of God. Okay? That's the image of the world. That's the image of angst and worry and wonder and what should I do? And oh my God, what now? That's that image. Because when we say we're made in the image and likeness of God, and it's true we are, this is not it. It's that within that's made in the image and likeness. It's that spiritual image and likeness that we're talking about. So it's not how I look. I don't think for a second God looks like me, poor thing. But I do think for a second that God is exponentially all the power, all the love, all the peace, all the joy, all the beauty that I get glimpses of in this little body. And that's the image and likeness of God. Not what I see in the mirror. Not that furrowed brow. Not that, oh my God. Who are you? What did you do with young Bill? So, our job is just to put together the pieces of this cosmic puzzle. But we can't do that unless we know what the final picture should be. You ever done a puzzle? Jigsaw puzzle? It's nice to have a picture of how it's going to turn out so that you know where the pieces go. Now, we don't get the whole picture, but we get enough of that picture to know when we are heading in the right direction. If the picture that we're looking at, that we're putting together, is not one of love, joy, peace, beauty, harmony, community, we know that. And we need to go looking for those pieces that will lend toward that final outcome rather than not. And we can't do it by ourselves. Yeah, we put puzzles together, the lovely Beverly and I. And she likes to put them on these little cuts of cardboard, you know, colors that look alike or things that look alike that are related so that when we could just work on them. And one day I was walking by the table and there were like 3 or 4 of these things stacked on top of each other and they were sticking off the table a little bit and I kind of, you know, caught the corner of it. And what I'm about to relate to you, I swear to God, happened in slow motion. I mean, it just happened like this. I turned, I saw they were all coming off the table. I started to reach for them, and all at once, something slapped my hands. And I put my hands behind my back, and I watched those things because I saw a vision in my mind of me hitting the edges of that cardboard and these pieces going all over the room. And what happened was, they came off, and they came off kind of like this, and they just kind of floated to the floor. There were like maybe half a dozen pieces of the puzzle that were pretty close around. And yet I knew, had I reached for it, they were going to be all over the place. I'd have just like thrown them up in the air. And sometimes that's what our involvement in life is like, isn't it? Because sometimes we just have to take our hands off. I use the phrase, put your hands on your head. So I don't know why in that scenario I put my hands behind my back. But still, sometimes we have to just sit on our hands. We need to get our hands off of a situation and understand that I can't do this. God, you take the wheel. This car's out of control. I'm not going to make it worse than it is. I'm just going to back off and let Spirit take charge of the situation. And when we do that, what a wonderful outcome. Is anybody still laboring under something that was so earth-shatteringly, desperately horrible from 30 years ago? Probably not. Because we're not built that way. We're built this way. We let life flow through us because it is a flow. We let life come into us, fill us with itself, and radiate forth from us. And as it comes out back out into that divine breeze, the chaff blows away, the wheat stays. And one thing about it, we do our part, what is ours to do, remember? But we have to understand that that's not everything. We don't get to do it all because we can't do it all. So I would just like to close with this. I'd just like to let you know that the beauty of that harvest, the beauty of this perennial harvest, this harvest that's always available to us, is unconditional love, understanding, and acceptance. That's our harvest. When we plant those seeds, that's what's going to grow. What's going to grow for us, in us, for our lives, and that's how we're going to live. And what a wonderful world it will be when everybody grows the same love, understanding, and acceptance and lives in that way that makes this world a world that works for everyone. Thank you. And just know with me that this moment, right here, right now, this is the moment when we can reap that harvest. We can reap all the love, all the joy, all the beauty that our hearts desire. It's there for me. It's was there for you. It was granted to us long before we ever even came into being. There's nothing that can keep us from that reward except ourselves. When we set ourselves aside, our small selves, when we let that divine self take over, we are absolutely, totally and completely guaranteed of reaping that beautiful, bountiful harvest. I'm so happy for this. I just thrilled with the idea that it's available to me and to everybody else. And knowing this is the case, it's with a grateful heart I just release this word of this harvest into the law. That marvelous law that is exacting and always says yes to whatever I demand of it. I let it go. I reap that benefit. So it is.
I'm thankful, so grateful. I'm one in the spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God.
So let's just know together that this is that time of the service when we get to give of ourselves, of our energy, our financial energy, to allow this center to continue to do its good work in the world. So I just know that this is our opportunity to share our abundance. We know that all our good comes from the one source, God. So just know that we bless these gifts, these tithes, these offerings, knowing they're given from the central core of who we are, which is God made manifest on this plane. We send them forward with no strings and no conditions. So it is. Terry Wilder.
I see love.
and that was Terry Wilder. Wow! Let's just know together that something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It's happening in my mind.
It's happening in my
It's
mind.
happening in my heart.
It's happening in my
It's
heart.
happening in my soul.
It's happening in my soul.
It is this thing called life.
It's this thing called life.
This thing called love.
This thing called love.
It is this thing called community.
This thing called community.
I think it.
I think it.
I feel it.
I feel it.
I believe it.